Well, that looks like quite a mess. That'll probably be the first thing we get on today, finish that transmission swap. Hey, how you doing? Thanks for tuning in to my YouTube channel. That's my YouTube voice. I apologize. I don't mean to do that. I hate YouTube channels that do that stuff. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. I'm glad you're here. And that is sincere. I'm Jimmy, we're making it work. If you're wondering what the heck's going on, who's this guy? Is he a professional comedian? No, he's a professional mechanic and not really much of a comedian. My wife says I crack myself up more than anybody, but got a lot of work to do today. We got a bunch of transmission jobs lined up. We're going to be finishing up the Chevy Cruze transmission probably first thing this morning. But we'll see. They usually pepper in some appointments and things, and maybe a classic or two will roll in. We'll see. I know one thing, we're going to definitely be able to learn a thing or two, me and you, and we're going to have some fun. So stay tuned. Oh, what's that? You want to know how the project truck's coming? Rocker's on, floor's in. Got to do a couple little pieces up here. Got a little work to do on this kick panel. It's a little nastier than I thought, so I'm going to have to strip all this Bondo and tar or whatever's on there off. Got this piece coming. So, in case you're interested, those videos are Sundays. Get off here. Did I guess that wrong? Got a second? Yeah. I got the top of those ABS harnesses somewhere. I don't know if it needs to come off the frame. I think my hose tool, my wire tool over here. I thought I was going to lower it down without much trouble. Good idea putting that block of wood. It's rear heavy, so holding this corner keeps her in good shape. The rack is heavier than the subframe, but those are disconnected. It's just the two push pins I mentioned.
Just gonna leave it on the ground, or you gonna let it carry it off?
I'm probably going to turn it so it's against the pole jack, and get it out of my way for the training jack to go under the trailer. That's the next thing we need, a subframe fixture.
Next thing what?
A subframe fixture. Lift it over.
Gotta lift it? Yeah. Oh, what are we gonna do?
Put it on the side, get the training jack out of the way. Take the board out of here.
You want me to get a bungee cord and just bungee it right to here?
I was thinking just sliding it over there later on the floor, so it doesn't fall over. Keep it around the pole jack. I think that should clear. Thank you. Front of the car, park 3.5 out maybe. All right. You guys remember in the last video, plastic training mount. Nice. Don't give me a hard time. Yeah. All right, now I gotta tread carefully and watch my step and get the starter on the ground cable and stud out of there. And then there's a rubber plug underneath, which is, see that little tan colored plug? That's where the converter bolts are. Cool, huh? Oh, there's also a little tin shield that goes right here, covers the flywheel teeth, held in by two transmission bolts that I already removed. So the starter's coming out next, that's the bottom line. That's what I had to do to get the starter out. It's gotta be a little tricky in this business. Of course, I had to take this bracket out to get my tool in there to get to the top bolt. And now I'm taking this rubber plugger doodle out of here. Because the flywheel opening isn't, the starter opening's not deep enough into the flywheel to get to the torque converter bolts. Not a big deal. We got it. We got it. Get the converter bolts out, turn on the flywheel. I think there's 3 on a GM. They don't make enough power like the Chryslers that have 4 and the Fords that have 4 bolts. GM's got 3. Even on like a big block Chevy, there's only 3 flywheel bolts. Let's go ahead and get those out of there. I'm guessing it's either a 15 or a 17 millimeter. And then I think there's just a bolt in the front holding the tranny to the motor right now. To turn the crankshaft, I got a Tecton E18. It's a big old torque socket. It fits on there nice. If you don't have to take the bolt off and you just want to turn the flywheel and you don't have one of these, you can turn the flywheel with a 14 millimeter, I believe. 14 millimeter will let you turn it as well. And that's what I'm going to use, just because I don't have a deep E18. So when I mount it on the flywheel bolt, a little below flush with the pulley. So I use my 14 millimeter instead. Since I'm not taking the bolt out, I just want to turn the flywheel. The 14 might even take it out. It fits on there really well, but it could damage the bolt. So if you want to take it out, you probably got to buy some sockets if you don't have E18s. Just line those bolts up one at a time and keep turning the flywheel until you get them all up. Little bump of the crank pulley and I can see the flywheel turn without the converter. 3 bolts. I put a bolt in here since it's a handy dandy ear right here. I put a bolt with a loose nut on it just to hold it, and then I wrap the chain around a bolt on the back. And of course when you do that, the phone rings. That's just how it works. Answer the phone, please. Thank you. Somehow I don't think they listen to me. I think that was a coincidence. Oh, see? That's what I'm saying. It was a quinky dink. It seems to be fighting me a little bit, so I'll lower this. The tranny's tilting a little, so I want to straighten that out. I'm not prying hard. You never want to force something like this. You just want to a little more force than you do with your fingers. That's all. And your fingers aren't in jeopardy when they're not up in there. Quick look to make sure there's nothing left that shouldn't be left. There was a clip on the main harness hidden in the back on a little bracket. You can either unbolt the 10 or pop it out of the bracket. That's what I do. All the way over here. Alright. That tranny's not too heavy. I might not use the engine hoist on that. I'll get a couple of lugs like I threatened to do last time. LKQ, 90-day warranty. They left a puddle of black ink underneath it. We'll see what happens. Dowel pin came out in the transmission just like the last one. The right side dowel pin. Interesting. If you want to definitely make everyone in the shop disappear, just have a transmission on the ground ready to be lifted up onto the jack. Alright, now my helpers have done their task and I can pull all my grab handles out. Gravity check! I just put all these in so it's easier to grab onto something. Should really get the engine hoist, but it's quite a maze to try to get through with an engine hoist, so this tranny's not really heavy. I think it's probably 150, 170 pounds or so, I would estimate. We lifted it pretty lightly. The last one I did was heavy. So I'm gonna take this bracket off. I gotta put my little lock bolt back in here where it was, and we'll start throwing it back in. Huh, the bolt doesn't go in there. That's easy. Alright. Little deflector shield. I don't know, it barely blocks the flywheel. It blocks 50% of it, I guess. But hey, whatever makes them happy. That's what makes me happy. You're happy? I'm happy. I get my 15s in the bottom here. Start getting them converter bolts in after that. I'm going to use my locking magnetic gray pneumatic sockets with a locking extension because these will drop down in the bell housing area. Like a lot of modern vehicles, for some reason they don't like to give you an escape area. But we'll figure it out, don't worry. It looked like they were gonna put the hole for access here, and they changed their minds, so I don't know. So I'm gonna snug these up. I'm afraid these nuts might hit somewhere on the back of the motor, so I don't want to leave the bolts out too far. I'm gonna tighten them up and back them up. I'm gonna tighten them up and back them off a quarter turn until I get them all in. There's no alignment hole, they're all round circles in the flywheel, so that's what we're doing now. Alright, last bolt. Watch how strong this magnet is. I'm using a locking extension just because it's pretty hard to pull the socket off. And I don't think the socket would fit down in the hole, but just in case, rather than trying to get this bolt in the hole after putting the starter up, I'll do the top bolt first and I'll put it up in place with my tools on it, like this. Start this upper bolt that's harder to get to. The bottom one's easy. There's a lot of stuff in the way. Come on, do it. Do it. Alright. That thumb does not want to let me get up in there and turn the bolt, the extension. Yeah, you know, you got two choices. You either get older or you don't. What are you gonna do? Alright, the rest of my starter bolts came from the same place I had all my starter stuff. That's for the little bracket. Get that bracket bolt in there. I brought all the hardware over here at one time just to make it a little more exciting while I hold the camera and put this stuff on here. And I have my power tool in the other hand that you guys are in. Basically got my arm around you, keeping you safe while we're under a vehicle that the engine's being held in with a pole jack. I didn't put an upper support on the engine because it's a little 4-cylinder, the front motor mount's still in, and the pole jack is probably way stronger than the engine. So, at least that's my theory. It's perfectly safe. Ground. Now a 10 for that activation wire or starter exciter wire, whatever you want to call it. I don't think that, I hope that doesn't block it. It doesn't look like it does. And I got to get my Torx. Oh, she's a frozy. The GoPro, she's a froze again. I got to do a hard reset. All right, Mr. GoPro, let's do this. It is blocking my socket, so that's all right. We'll get it figured out. I thought I took this off last time as well, but nothing a little gear wrench open end can't handle. Problem solved. All right, that's all in. I still got to do this. And then I put my axles in. I think before I put the axles in, I'm gonna get some bolts up there in that upper mount. So that, is that not magnetic? That's magnetic. I'm gonna put the bolts in the upper mount, so it'll help hold this pretty level. So when I go back in, the other mounts won't be so hard. Coming out, it kind of, the engine started turning and moving. So luckily I can reach up there with my, I got a mini gear wrench, ratchet wrench, and it's a 15. Should be able to reach up here. I got the bolts in by hand already, and at least get these bolts started in there. And I know I'm pretty secure. It's not going to go anywhere. When I move the trainer jack out of my way, less stress on the oil pan under the pole jack, and more stability putting the subframe back in. That's the theory, right? I'm going to tighten these later with an impact, but for now I just want to get it close. What I'll probably only do is tighten this one, leave the other two up. Not that I would forget, but it's a great reminder when I look at it and see the bolt's not down right. If I just snug them all up, it's possible to forget it. Might as well button this up while I'm in there, huh? 13 nut. Axles are in. Put these mounts in. A lot easier with the subframe out of the way. Same thing in the back. I'm Starting to get that semi-new smell, semi-new car air freshener smell, at least. The guys helped me get the subframe up. I didn't use the 2x4 this time. I just had someone, the front's real light, the back's where all the weight is. So someone at the front, two of us at the back. Now I got this close. Before I put this up, I got to get this harness bracket bolted back onto the rack. Use a 10 quarter drive with an extension. Lock that up, then I can put it up, and I got my bolts and my brackets ready to go for the back. Whew, that thing's heavy. That's probably the hardest part is the subframe stuff. Got my electrical plugs all snapped back on the motor. Now this will jack up into place without hurting anything. Gotta climb a little over this way. Transmission mounts fight. That's what it is. You have to give that a little love. And there you some, don't you? Now we're cooking with bacon grease. You guys probably just looked at the back of my neck and the sweat all running off my head. It's supposed to hit like feels like 100 today, but the thermometer doesn't feel it, so I'm not buying it. I'm going to say it feels like 94 and it's humid. So it's less comfortable than a dry 94. Somehow they translate that to feels like 100 because it's muggy. Am I wrong about that? Would a thermometer not feel the heat? If the heat is to be felt, if it feels like, the thermometer doesn't feel it though. Why is that? Because it doesn't read humidity. Alright, before I tighten them subframe bolts, I want this bracket lined up because remember my exhaust hanger bracket is attached to the exhaust still. So if I either have to leave this loose and be nervous about remembering it, or put a guide bolt in, make sure it's going to be in the right place when I tighten it. I'll take the bolt back out when I put the exhaust. It's easy. Now that's tight. I know it's going to line up when I go to my next phase in the operation. $18 on that one. The phone, it's ringing. Someone needs a transmission somewhere, I'm sure. Alright, now the front's lined up. Piece of cake, man. We're almost done. Only got another hour or two. This harness passes down the inside. I got a place stuff for you. Take it goes like this. It does not go like that. That means I got to reroute it. That's terrible news. I see. I routed the harness on the right side of the rack and pinion thinking it went in a complicated place. But it's supposed to go down at the bottom. There's a little push pin hole, I don't know if you can see it, just over the rack boot. That gets that push pin up top. And then my holes will line up the rest of the way. Alright, redo. Wow. Oh, look at that. There it goes. Oh. Little push pins catch on stuff. And all that does is just make it more exciting for me. And I don't even have to pay extra for it. This one, look at this. Right back where it came from. Right back where it started from. Oh. Alright, if the subframe's the hardest part, the wiring, the way they did it, is the tricky part. Doesn't make sense to me, but normally when they make those decisions, it's based on new assembly, not repair. They're obviously not concerned at all with repairs afterwards. Every manufacturer has some silly things they do that you're like, why did they do that? And then every manufacturer has some things that you expect to be hard and they're not. I don't understand it. But it is what it is. It comes with the territory. Doctors are lucky. They only have 2 models to remember. Alright, now a couple of ball joint pinch bolts. I'm going to put the exhaust in after the ball joint pinch bolts, and the tie rod end and the sway bar link I'll do when the car's halfway down. be a pain in the poop deck. A couple of those. Good workout. Hopefully this will line up still. Oh, look at that. My plan is coming together. Oxygen sensor, and there's a little bracket it slides onto. It'll pop off sometimes, just snap it back on. It's very, you could just tug it right off of there pretty easily. Maybe it's been on and off a few times, I'm not sure. I'm gonna pull this plug out. It looks like it's leaking anyway, so they didn't tighten it. It's been dripping this nasty black, looks like squid ink, and I'm gonna make sure it's drained, take that back out, and then make sure it's tight, put it back in, right? That's the plan, Stan. Oh, did I say that already? Not today. A few more of these screws. Lower this thing down to half mast. And button up the mid stuff. I'm going to leave the little side skirt that goes over here off until we got the fluid level correct and all that stuff. Now this stabilizer link doesn't really fit behind the strut, so it's best to do that first before the tie rod end, so that you can sneak it in there. Then it's easy. Well, easier. The is an important part usually, and this is not staying up in the taper, which means it's probably going to spin. That's all right. We'll try it anyway. We'll try the sway bar link first. That's a shame. And then we'll try the toe rod on. See what happens. Yeah, that one tightened, see? Told you. Well, maybe that's not what I said exactly, but it was something like that. Now, turn the stud backwards. That'd be the same as tightening the nut. It's kind of weird. After you do that, I think I mentioned this before, but in case you haven't seen some of my other videos, right now it's not really that tight. The stud will stop, but you can crank the nut probably another quarter turn or so to make it good and tight. Same when you take it off. I always spin the nut loose first, and then it'll make the stud spin. Then you hold the nut and turn the stud. If you try to put a wrench on it and just force the stud to turn, it won't, because the nut has jammed everything together, if that makes sense. But if you spin the nut loose, then you'll be able to turn the stud without stripping out the Torx inside there. I marked it before I took it apart. Now I can take off my radiator holder uppers. We don't get too carried away. I want to tighten these up first. Cooler lines are in. My next course of action before I get too carried away, I'm going to be to tuck this harness out and get my 3 Bellhausen bolts in the top, if you remember. So we'll do that real quick and we'll come back. Don't forget about the big poopy bolt. Can't get a socket or ratchet on it. So, get the cable. I think those had 13mm head on them. Short ones. Aha! I found 2 bolts mysteriously next to each other. I looked at them in my tray and they smiled at me. That's how I knew. Yeah, just enough room to get that with the cable in the way. The harness is snapped in place, the bolts are in. Things are going well. Oh, I gotta put the 2 10s in the front of the harness where it bolts to the pan. I gotta plug in the trans module. And then the battery tray and PCM going next. That's a strong cable, man. The cable did not want to let me put the battery box back. All right, there's about a bajillion little snapper doodles that go in all these little, it's like, maybe not a bajillion, maybe half a bajillion. I didn't mean to exaggerate like that. But I'm gonna tighten the battery tray down first. Snap in my amp clamp. Now, PCM, wiring harness bracket, some snapping doodles, and they're everywhere. I mean, they're all over the place. You gotta really pay attention so you don't miss a snap. Last thing you want to do is miss a snap. Almost forgot I wanted to drain the oil out of it. Yeah, it doesn't really make me feel that good. Well, we'll see what happens. Well, someone said the guideline for how long to let it drip is 1 6-pack, but it's the middle of the day, can't do that. So I'm gonna say that's about a beer and a half. So we're good to go. We call it a win. It's a good compromise. Pull a level check plug out of there. Get about 3 quarts in it. They said something about program it before starting the engine. So I'm gonna put fluid in. I'm gonna put fluid in there until it trickles out, and then go up front and ask them about the programming portion. We have a remote box now that we can do third-party programming with. A little bit easier to streamline the process with all the subscriptions and stuff. So there might be something involved with that. We'll see what happens. Wish me luck. Let's get a little Dexron 6 dinosaur plasma in there. Should be trickling out now. Oh yeah. I want to see it running out of that fill plug, and I overfilled it a little on purpose to get some more of the nasty stuff out of there that was in there. Has me a little concerned, but you know, that's just the nature of the beast. Apparently I got the F350s in my box. After I get the transmission on the F150 done, I got an F350 that needs a bunch of other work. The one Bill put the engine in, I guess he's getting like 4 or 5 other things done. So I guess I'll be working on that one. I guess it's going to be all bull work the next couple of weeks. We'll see what happens. Fluid's in, at least the initial fill. Going to get the steering column pinch bolt tight, and then we're going to check it for unusual codes and stuff. Yeah, that's easy. Come on. Come on. Let's get the scanner and the Cruze chit-chatting and take a look at the codes. We'll also obviously have to reset the trans adaptives just so it'll start with a clean slate and won't try to use memory from a different transmission. Well, wouldn't you know, no DTCs. That's the PCM though, or we might call it an ECM since it is a separate TCM and PCM. System list, TCM, read fault code, no DTCs. Now we'll go into special functions, fast learn, showing before transmission, internal repair or component replacement, up to 10 minutes. Oh, it's going to ask me to warm it up, I think, too. Let's see, it'll tell me to start the engine. Enable conditions not met. Must be okay to start it. So now what I can do is run it in gear, reverse, drive, neutral, reverse, park. While this warms up a little bit, adjust the fluid level and get it really close. You got to leave a little room for expansion. When it gets hot, the fluid level rises, it expands. So we'll get it close to the bottom of the hot threshold, and then it should be perfect after it warms up. We'll have to recheck it, I'm supposing. But I don't want to run it low on fluid is my point. That's the long-winded version of it. Transmission adaptive fast learn complete. It took about 8 minutes or so. Wasn't really that fast, but I guess 8 minutes is kind of fast depending on your perspective. Shift the transmission to park, exit this control function, turn the ignition off, open the driver's door for 30 seconds, and then close the driver's door. take the key out of the ignition too. It didn't specifically say that. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to wait 30 seconds, shut the driver's door, and then we're going to take this thing for a drive. Should be no problem at all. I'm very confident. And we'll see you in a minute. 30 seconds. All right, I got engine speed, input shaft speed, and output shaft speed. We're going to go to graphing mode. We're going to come... Oh, wait a second. Ew, sons of guns. Why does it change back every single time? That is a pain. You got to make a phone call. You're going to have a problem here. RPM. RPM. You got to change that every time. All right. Now I'm going to go for a drive. We'll see how this thing goes. I'm not going to film while I'm driving. And the traffic is so bad around here, you guys might know. I don't film very often. Unless the traffic's super light while I'm driving. So, we'll see how this thing goes and we'll come back. Alright, transmission is working great so far. We're coming up to one of the craziest intersections in Kissimmee here. See people in the right lane here? They're not making a right turn. They're making a left turn. See? They come in the right lane, cut in front of semis, and then get in the left turn lane. See that Cadillac just went around in the right lane? That's what people do. This intersection is nuts. Everyone goes to Pleasant Hill and goes south towards Point Siena. So they work in Orlando and live in Point Siena because it's cheaper to live there and it pays better in Orlando. So every day they make an hour-and-a-half drive each way. And they're very tired and hungry when they're going home, and they do whatever they have to get through the traffic. But this transmission's working great. All my data looks good. I'll take it around the block the rest of the way. Nice long drive. I want to make sure this car's 100%. We're going to check it for codes real quick and see what's next. I think another transmission. They put those plastic divider poles up. They fold over when you hit them though, because everyone drives down the right lane, and they'll go from this right lane through the intersection. No consequences and probably no insurance. Let's see if we got any fault codes. Nope. Only thing I'm going to do now, I brought it on the alignment rack. I'm going to lift it up, make sure there's no leaks. Customer gets their car back. Let's see what's next. You guys might remember this here one. This is Yabucoa transmission. F150 2005. In case you don't remember. This is a pretty decent truck. The interior is a little tore up because of the leather not being conditioned and stuff. Actually, this isn't like old leather back in the day. It's probably coated, so conditioners would only help a tiny bit. But 152,864 miles, a love rating of 6. And we're going to put a transmission in. We got a Reman ATK transmission for this one. We just spread the love around everywhere. We got them from ATK, we got them from LKQ, we get them from Jasper. Jasper brought us pizza today because we bought an engine. So we got pizza. They really want you to buy their stuff. And I think they make good stuff. People rag on it, but I've had good luck with it. Very few problems. When you do have one, they stand behind it. A lot of these other companies are a little bit cheaper. They offer the same warranty, but when you try to apply the warranty, they're usually not very happy. They come up with a reason it's not warranted. Anyway, I'm not even sure it's two or four-wheel drive yet. I know it has no third gear. Let's do it. Shouldn't go nowhere. What I like about these two is Ford curves the frame rail up pretty quick in the back. I don't know why they can't wait till after the rear door, but I guess that's what makes them happy. Even though it doesn't make me happy, that's alright. It just has, there's like 45% of the truck behind the rear lift point. That's alright. None of them fell off yet, but there are no safeties on those rear arms, so you know. Let's do it. It is four-wheel drive, by the way. I saw axles while I was setting the lift in the front. 8 hours labor. Drive shafts all marked. Drive shafts all marked. And the marker pen went a little berserk on that one. That's alright. And I gotta take the transfer case out first. So 2 drive shafts gotta come out. And then I think there's 6 bolts facing that way. The top ones might be fun. We'll see. I got curved wrenches for that. And once the transfer case is out of the way, then we can start working on taking the exhaust hanger, cross member, and transmission out. It should be, I think taking the transfer case out is probably 60% of the work. Of course, you got to take the starter out too. Those are fun. You guys done the Ford V8 starters? They're cool. And you need special sockets for the bolts. 12mm swivelies. I also have a, I got a longer straight one. Let's see here. Where'd I put it? There it is. In case I need that. It sneaks in some places that the little swivelly might not fit. Well, someone told me that my icon drawers aren't deep enough. So I just wanted to say, if I'm standing straight up, reaching to the back of the box, it's pretty good reach. My little T-Rex arm, I'm like, I don't know how much further I'd want to, I basically have to lean over if I was going to go any deeper. So, I don't know, just me. I don't think it's that big of a deal. Of course, I did buy a top box instead of a hutch. So, the square inches is way more than when I had my 84-inch Epic toolbox. I get way more square inches. I actually have empty drawers in this toolbox and I've added tools. Just thinking while I'm getting tools. Back to work. I think it's in there somewhere. There it is. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. That's not what we wanted. Okie dokie. No, we cannot do a wheel alignment on your monster truck. The socket makes it quite a bit easier. Uh-oh. She's a leaker. I don't want it dripping while I work, so we're draining about halfway. We're trying not to make too much of a mess. You know what? I'll just service the transmission. The transfer case will get new fluid too. That's all. I'm not going to try to stick the plug back in there and make an even bigger mess than I already have. That's how I roll. I'm not going to give it the full 6-pack drip. We're going with a half a beer. And I call that good. That's all. It's going to get 98% new fluid. 98.875. Looks like someone put Teflon tape around there. That's a big no-no. Do not Teflon tape drain plugs. It makes the aluminum cases crack. Luckily, most of it's peeled out, so I'm just leaving it out. If it didn't have Teflon tape on it from the factory, don't put Teflon tape on it. I'm going to leave that one ready to go when I put it back together. The only thing left now is to start trying to take some bolts out of the front of that transfer case. What do you say? That's going to be fun. A little bit of a challenge, but you know how we like a challenge. I'm going to run some fluid out of this thing first before I start in the transfer case. As I get this thing drained, since I've already made a mess anyway. Get this drained, get the pan tightened back up. Then we'll get to work on the fun heavy duty stuff. Tastes like work. Got my pole jack under the transmission pan, although it's not too happy about it. I got my drive shaft on here too, which is going to be a little tricky. So, instead of my finger, the pry bar will be going to get less hot. This truck must be like in the dirt a lot. Just because it's 4-wheel drive doesn't mean you have to go in the dirt. I'm going to lose the drive shaft. I don't have enough hands. Someone want to grab that drive shaft for me? Stay there. Now the drive shaft's up on top of that. Oh, grabby check. Up on top of the, there's like a little shield around the U-joint. I guess they expect them to explode a lot or something. I don't know. But, it's almost there, trust me. It seems to be taking a while because it's taking a while. She's a dirty girl. Now we're cooking.
What do you think about the Cruze?
special wrench for that one. You guys just turned off and went to sleep, took a little nap, and but you didn't miss much. Don't worry. We're close now. We're coming down. I got the pole jack under the train, and I will go ahead and move the train jack under the train once I get this air transfer case out of my way. This truck's officially now on no-wheel drive. I think I'll put this on the work table up here so that I don't have to pick it up off the floor. All right, transfer case is out. That was my goal for today, get the transfer case out of here. Now, I gotta take the starter out. I gotta take some converter nuts off the studs, cooler lines, and some bell housing bolts, and this thing will be out. It's easy, man. Thanks for watching today's video. That's where we're gonna end it. Everyone's closed up and gone home, so you guys are awesome. I hope I see you in the next video. Torque the like button on your way out.